Hello, everyone. Professor Melvin Engelstein here with an exciting interview with Sabrina Wallace of the Synergy Channel. But before we get started, we'd like to recite to you a little ditty that we worked up together, courtesy of Columbia Records. All right, 1, 2, 3, here we go. Sabrina, are you optimistic about the way things are going?
No, I never, ever think of it at all.
Don't you ever worry when you see what's coming down?
No, I try to mind my business, that is, no business at all.
When it's time to function as a feeling human being, will your Bachelor of Arts degree help you get by?
I hope to study further a few more years or so. I also hope to keep a steady high.
Will you try to change things? Use the power that you have, the power of a million new ideas?
What is this power you speak of and this need for things to change? I always thought that everything was fine.
Don't you ever feel repression just closing in around?
No, the campus here is very, very free.
Don't it make you angry the way war is dragging on?
Well, I hope the president knows what he's into. I don't know.
Don't you ever see the starvation in the city where you live? All the needless hunger, all the needless pain?
I haven't been there lately. The country is so fine, but my neighbors don't seem hungry because they haven't got the time.
Well, thank you for the talk. You know, you've really eased my mind. I was troubled by the shape of things to come.
Well, if you had my outlook, your feelings would be numb. You'd always think that everything was fine.
Yes, and therein lies the juxtaposition that Sabrina Wallace and Professor Engelstein seek to bridge this tremendous gap between those that care and are alert and concerned, and those that have tuned in, turned on, and dropped out with apathy on their mind, perhaps a doobie smoke. Um, so, with that, I'd like to introduce Sabrina Wallace, who has very impressive credentials, which are not germane to the topic at hand, but she is an experienced network engineer. She's worked for Charter Communications, which is part of the Paul Allen Vulcan investment family of investments that originated from the Microsoft IBM franchise. She also had the title of Information Service Professional at a university in the United States that will remain nameless. And today we are going to learn from Sabrina Wallace, who is at a higher level than a PhD from Stanford or Harvard or Yale or University of California, you name the campus. She is at a higher level because she has a broad span of knowledge across many areas. And of course, this discussion involves anthropology, sociology, physiology. It involves human psychosis, human psychology. It involves microbiology, nanoscience, neuroscience. It involves electrical engineering. It involves networks, all different types of networks, from cable networks to radio frequency networks to mesh networks to optogenics networks, nodes on the network. So, Sabrina, please tell us what you'd like the audience to know who are new. You may be new to the folks on my channel, so some of them do know you and some do not. So, what can you tell us?
I can tell you that in 1995, everyone's bodies were tethered to databases with our current cloud structure that we have now, and that move was made for command and control and cybersecurity. In 2011, the wireless body area network inside of our Wiley and Cambridge types of white papers was working with the same, what they call feature values for the DigiID, the digital identifiers for our new whether it's going to be universal basic income or your new digital ID that you use to purchase, to travel, whatever you do, that information is tethered by feature value to your body. And you are a node on a network called the internet.
Is it the Internet of Things or more than that?
Well, originally it was split into two. You had the Internet of Things, which were literally objects like your smart fridge, your smart car. And then the Internet of Bodies was separate from that as bodies. But in 2000, I'd say 15 to 17, the big pieces of equipment that drive this big Internet of everything changed over into the Internet of Everything and started creating or working more fully on something called your digital twin, which is another component of that digi identifier.
Okay, now we definitely need to discuss digital twins or doppelganger twins. But before we do, let me ask you a question about human beings or doggies or kitty cats or farm animals. Do biological entities like humans or cats or dogs, when they're birthed from their mother, do they have a body area electrical network? Do they have that birth?
Well, every body, and whether all mammals, all humans, emit bioelectricity. And we also emit electromagnetic radiation, just naturally walking around. So that is technically our human biofield. That's what it's called on the National Institute of Health. So when you call it, your natural body area network, that is correct. But due to all the sensors, it's called sensors, open system architecture, we have filled the whole world with sensors for the ground, for the air, for the water. And of course, like you say, every bunny rabbit, every mammal out there. And that's one of the ways that they monitor everything that we have in our atmosphere as well as in our local communities.
I mean, how about the blades of grass at the park?
Yes, and the soil strata by its individual teeny tiny molecules.
I was talking with a former Marine gunnery sergeant, and he was explaining some tactical training that he received as a sniper, and that they do have bullets which emit noise in multiple directions to confuse any enemy tracking.
Mm-hmm.
But he says after you fire that, then you need to move quickly into a different position and fire your kill shot. And you have predetermined that location, but the enemy is confused. And I tried to explain to him, I'm not sure that that is a valid strategy anymore, because if every blade of grass and every bush, every poison oak bush has sensors, biosensors, smart dust, then any movement, whether you have a real ID, whether you're vaccinated, whether you're chipped, wouldn't matter, because they can pick up the movement of footprints from one place to another in a mesh network. Because if we're just spraying it everywhere, essentially every millimeter of the earth, every dirt clod, every rock has some form of a sensor near it or on it. And if you should step anywhere in proximity, I'm sure it could be triggered by noise or movement or
Heat.
some just heat sensor, right? And then that would be immediately transmitted to other nodes on the network until it went to a command center, which can issue a command on how to respond or not respond. Because I'm sure you could hit like an exemption key and say, oh, that's okay, that person has permission to be on that property. But if you didn't, then you might have a drone could be summoned to neutralize the problem. Correct. This is very crazy. I mean, is that possible? I mean, that's sort of like out of Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Screw Your Freedom film.
Yes, that is precisely how it works. Rob Braxman is the name of the cybersecurity specialist who just recently explained that the mesh networking allows for this type of track, trace monitoring, health monitoring throughout all of our air, particulate, and soil, as well as visible light communication, which allows them to bend the light around corners. So in your example with the sniper who moves to take the shot, that's calculated within a mathematical space that, as you mentioned, they can watch from every direction. And on top of visible light communication, which also includes those purple streetlights that you see everywhere, they're
Yeah.
able to look through your skin and tissue with something called luciferase, which folks were speaking about, but they weren't quite sure how it works. And how it works, as simply as I can put it, is with those same biosensors that they're using, they're biological sensors that they use with an electrical signal for all these different types of calculations, measurements, and metrics, so that they can assess the situational awareness in real time, including with predictive analytics that shows up on their little phone or their whatever equipment they're looking at, and then they can make an appropriate decision and change with the various networks, as you surmised, from there.
Wow. Okay. Well, before we get we want to talk about optogenetics and light beam bending, or even Sir Isaac Newton was doing some of that back in 1690. He was using a prism to analyze sunlight and splitting the sun ray into a spectrum using a prism.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a long time ago. See, people need to understand that the situation that we find ourselves in through no fault of our own has been developed over several hundred years of electrical engineering and study of light and protons, and then we would micro technology with Silicon Valley, microchips, microprocessing, and now we've morphed into nano, which is 1/1000th of a micron. And so silicon is out and graphene is in, because graphene is much smaller and more suitable for biological entities than would be the concept of getting chipped, that you get chipped. But you could get chipped in many different ways, because now we have neuroscience and nanotechnology and microbiology have all fused together, financed and funded by, I believe, Swiss banking authorities. So do you want to talk about the digital twin and how that is important in the concept of humans being controlled? How does the digital twin, I mean, is it a file cabinet of everything that's in the original person? Is it a dossier file cabinet, or
Yes.
is it more than that?
Well, the digital twin is operant in real time with the choices that you make, including your biological signals like your oxygen, your blood pressure, and your heart rate, because it is in use with the Internet of Medical Things, which also connects to your Fitbits and your wearables and things of that nature. But the digital twin with cybersecurity back in 2009 and 11 and 15 ongoing is about your electronic health records as well that are absolutely following you around. What most people do not know is that we have the ability to write data, just like we write it onto a hard drive, onto your DNA. People also do not know that humans are a natural antenna. And because they don't know many of the things, as you mentioned, of how old much of this light beam steering and bending has been going on, they don't understand that our 60 years here in the United States of electronic and electromagnetic warfare is the same dual use system that they're using for your Internet of Medical Things. It has to have standards. Respectfully, sir, if it did not have standards, when they are firing those electrical signals, your tissue would overheat. So the standards are used in both places, and your digital twin is with you lifelong. It is always there, but it is protected by cybersecurity with CISA and DISA, which is our Pentagon. So you can't just hack into someone's body area network. Those networks are protected. You have to have specific cybersecurity access. Now, as we've spoken briefly prior, that doesn't mean that people don't have ways, software, and I'll be as kind as I can, IIT SEC, SEC, and you will see that our spy state, as well as our medical folks, as well as cybersecurity people who work to keep all those body area networks and digital twin databases safe, have specialized software that they can log in with computer modeling software, which I do show on the channel. That way everyone is safe. But your digital twin is a copy of your immune system. So another thing with precision AI healthcare, they're able to test on the digital copy of you rather than have to simply start injecting your tissue or test the drug on you. So the benefits and the detractors, they are always offering the benefits as AI will solve all the problems. It's precision healthcare with your genome, but they failed to mention the in situ, in vivo, meaning in place of origin, and inside of you analysis is coming from polling, POLLING, those biological signals, which are your natural biology, right out of your body, and reporting it to their phone or their device over the same wireless that we all use. And that's how that DigiTwin continues to update and stay with you. It's also used for virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. So your headsets and all that.
What if while they're doing their Dr. Frankenstein experiment on the digital twin, the virtual you, they break it? Is it possible to, screw up the digital twin? And would they have a copy of it so they can reconstitute it and then say, well, that experiment didn't work. Let's try again.
Absolutely, yes. And there are different transcriptomics is one of those ways.
Like crazy stuff here.
Yep. They take a transcript of any genetic changes that are made or broad base, but in
before and after.
Yes, and in section 3.3 of the Wiley paper for cybersecurity and digital forensics that I go over on the channel, we can give you a disease or take that disease away by changing a node on the body. One of these biosensors making a change. That goes with our, if you excuse me just one moment, I have a sign here I'd like to show for folks.
All right. Visualize.
This is what you want to type into your Google search or your search.
COY hyphen ban.
COVBAN, COV is in Victor dash body area network. Yes.
And you hold that up so people can write that down so they don't have to rewind it. And then IoT space WBAN.
Yep.
Internet of Things. Is that what that means?
Yes, because the changeover, as I said, to the Internet of Everything includes your digital ID.
They haven't put that up yet.
Correct.
They probably want to keep that a secret.
Well, they know people aren't very excited about it for certain.
Well, I got a couple problems here with what you've said. So the first problem is that, number one, I don't trust these people. Okay, number one. Number two is I don't recall ever having a forum of debate at any time regarding the Internet of Things, let alone the Internet of Everything. And I've never heard Rachel Madcow or Bill O'Reilly or Tucker Carlson. I've never heard Walter Cronkite. I've never heard David Brinkley ever mention the wireless area, the body area network or the wireless body area network. I've never heard them utter the word digital twin. So it appears that we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions, on something that was top secret, never discussed, no democratic process, no disclosure. And I already didn't trust them. So even if I did trust them, the fact that they're hiding this information and that you're really the only dedicated channel on the military platform, I mean, that dives this deep into the Internet of Everything and the people's body area networks and hooking it up to the mesh HAL 9000 supercomputer, you're the only one. I mean, that's kind of a red flag, isn't it? Like, do you really think that they would ever tell the truth about anything ever? I mean, they don't get anything right. So
Well,
this must be like, this is life or death. This is extremely important. This is surprise sneak attack. The clueless people that are out there, watching World Cup soccer or trying to figure out if Caitlyn Jenner is going to go back to the Paris Olympics and maybe be in the Masters category for trans women.
with the
Whatever.
amount, yeah, with the amount of distractions going on, the main thing that I get asked with my second visual aid here is the list of who is you, or as you said, I don't trust these people. Who are
Yeah,
these?
who are these people, Sabrina?
So right here on this side,
Oh, I know some of those people.
yes, and these are the folks that are beholden to cyber security and command and control.
Could
For
you just, you want me to read that? Just put that up there so I can see that again. So it's medical professionals. So that would be doctors, nurses, hospital staff, right? Acute care centers. Then we have your county sheriff's department, which those are the guys with the NATO paramilitary flak jackets, the 9mm Beretta semi-automatic pistols, and I believe they have AR-15 semi-automatic rifles in their trunk. And they also have an intelligence department within all the sheriff's department. Police, which would be bigger cities, have municipal police departments, like Chicago, like New York, like San Francisco used to have a police department. Now it's self-help. If someone breaks into your car, you go to the website and you report it because no policeman's going to show. And then you have lawfare. I think that refers to our court system, which is under maritime law, but everybody likes to think that it's constitutional law, which it's not. You don't know. Try to visit a courtroom. You can't even get into a courtroom unless you have business there. In other words, you have to be a victim or a defendant, or you have to be a bail bondsman. It's the only way you're going to get into a courtroom. They let bail bondsmen in, they let lawyers in, they let witnesses. Then they tell the witness to go wait in the hallway until they're called. But the thing is that nobody gets into a quorum except the maritime members of the bar and the few clueless people that have no idea they're going to get railroaded. Paramilitary, so that would be a pseudo security corporate sheriff's deputies that have decided to go into corporate security, and black project military. So that could be Gladio kill teams or intelligence, secret, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Army, people working in clandestine operations, right? And then you have geospatial, aka Silicon Valley. Well, this is everything from TRW spy satellites, Corona, Keyhole Looking Glass, Novell, Sun Microsystems, Lockheed, Hughes, Space and Communications, Google.
they use their databases to work together. And that's why when people would ask me consistently, well, why won't they talk about the systems? And I said, it's information surveillance and reconnaissance, yes, not hee-haw. So these are not things that most people would know about. And instead, we ended up with, and this is where I would say, I have not been the only person talking, but my unique approach to the subject matter, I think, helped a lot of folks understand that it is a dual use system.
Oh, yes, yes.
Initially,
Well,
when
I
I was
learned that as a little boy. Things that are good that you can use a weapon system for good, believe it or not, to defend yourself or your family, right?
correct.
But you can also go out and rob people or murder people with a bayonet, with a I suppose a hunting knife, but a bayonet would be way 10 times more lethal than a hunting knife would be. And you can use a handgun. You could use a wrist rocket. I used to have a wrist rocket. I
But
had a
who,
BB gun. I had a pellet gun.
but who would be suspecting an electrical signal from your cell phone to give you your myocarditis?
Yeah, but I mean, we take things for granted because there's a disconnect somewhere along the line. There's been a mass psychosis programming of citizens to take the command from television or billboards or magazine advertising that your new mobile phone, get the latest upgrade and or get the latest big screen television. And then it turns out your television is spying on you and that your phone is spying on you. And then when you get the latest software from WordPerfect, that it's spying on you, that it's making a record of all your keystrokes, and that therefore all your communications, your text and email communications and Word documents are going into a dossier on you. And people think, well, that's not a problem because I'm not on trial. I have nothing to hide. Well, if you've ever spent any time in court, you realize they can look. They gave Charlie Miles Maddox Manson the gas chamber death penalty on 7 people that he didn't even know them. He didn't know them. He didn't murder them. And everyone agreed that he wasn't present during any murders. Everybody agreed. He still got the gas chamber. So what I'm saying is look, it's rigged. Okay. So you don't want you don't want documents in the hands of law enforcement. You don't want documents in the hands of lawyers in a courtroom, because they will delete anything that exonerates you, and then they will mispresent the evidence deliberately on purpose. And then when you object to your personal lawyer, who's going to railroad you? Your lawyer is going to railroad you, not the prosecution. The defense lawyer is the one who's going to drop the guillotine blade on you, the one that you hired. He's the one, because he's going to betray you. He's going to be a treacherous lawyer. And he will say, you misremembered. They always do that. When you catch your lawyer in a lie, which is fairly easy to do since they lie at great regularity, then they say you misremembered or you misunderstood, that you're not a good client. And so,
that's
okay,
why
what's this?
I have lawfare here, because most people don't realize it's not just the doctors and the police or the spec ops, special operations. Everyone has to be involved at some level due to the secure nature of information, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And now, since the COVID, your telemedicine, mHealth, and eHealth. And I also wish to add in that plausible deniability is their luxury of bread and butter. As I mentioned about who's going to suspect a phone pointing at you. The real problem here is we have an entire community of not only veterans, but of people who simply worked for the State Department. And I don't even mean as a Secretary of State or an administrative assistant. I mean just as a personal maid or someone who was in an embassy. They get in the crossfire.
Yeah.
Yes. And they get in the crossfire of one of these signals and they're told Havana syndrome, that doesn't exist. And
Havana syndrome is COVID, is influenza.
Well,
migraine headache.
But electromagnetic and electronic warfare, no one talks about it. They think it's only for tanks, planes, which allows, unfortunately, a lot of abuse has gone on. Most people know or have heard from someone mention themselves or a friend as being a targeted individual, which I think would be good for our part 2. But I just want to touch on it briefly to let people know this is the same dual use system. And the more biosensor, nanomaterial, wearable, all these technologies that we're thinking are safe, tether us further into this network of mesh devices, which are already following us around at every level.
Wow. Well, folks, what we're going to do is we're going to break this talk into part A and part B, or part one, part two, because we don't want to lose anybody. It's very important, but we're going to hit the pause button, and then we're going to come back with part two in a few moments. So grab an adult beverage, because we're just getting started here, and Sabrina's going to take us a little deeper into the mine shaft there of Site 300, which, yes, has a Masonic number, of course. And we're going to get into some things that you might find disturbing. So I do recommend your favorite adult beverage, perhaps 2 shots minimum, and then we'll pick it up. So Sabrina, we'll see you on the other side in part two. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.